All right. Well, game three in the books. Boston Celtics versus the Miami Heat. Boston Celtics have finally won a game. It is now 2-1 with the Miami Heat leading this series. I'd like to just very quickly go through my mental breakdowns over the first two games of this series and my thoughts in the third game as well, and looking forward to what I think is going to happen in this series as we move forward. So let's get started. Game one, I feel like Kemba Walker is hurt. I don't understand why nobody is talking about his knee, but he must be hurt. Brad must know about it and be just keeping quiet about it because he wants teams to fear and respect Kemba. But when I watch him play, he looks like a decoy. He's either hurt or he sucks. And so I basically wanted to think that he was hurt as being the least annoying of those two options. Now, obviously, we know Kemba had a really good year, but towards the end of the season, aggravated his knee, and he wasn't the same player at the end of the season as he was to start the season. That's a fact. Now, when COVID hit and he had like 3 months off, everybody just kind of assumed that, okay, he's going to be able to rest his knee for 3 months. He'll be good when he comes back. That wasn't the case at all. When we first returned to the bubble, Kemba was missing practices because his knee was still bothering him. I remember thinking at the time, we're doomed. That's what I thought. I thought there's no way we're going to get through the playoffs with Kemba having a bum knee. And I just thought to myself, if he took 3 months off to rest and it's still not better, then how is it just going to magically get better when he's playing every other day? Now, no one has talked about this since then. No one has brought up the knee. Kemba hasn't mentioned it in interviews when he's, trying to explain why he's been so bad. Brad hasn't brought it up. And I don't know what's going on. I just can't come to grips with the fact that he had a bad knee, that it had been bothering him when he came back to the bubble, and that magically his knee pain just went away. So in my head, in my world, I've just accepted that Kemba Walker has been playing these playoffs somewhere around 80%, maybe 90%. Maybe it's vacillating depending on how he's feeling that day, and that they've just decided that they're not going to talk about it because they don't want other teams to know that he's not 100% and sort of not respect him in our offense. Or he sucks, which I hope that's not the case. I'm not in love with anything Stevens and timeout related. I don't think I've ever felt confident about when he uses a timeout, and even more what's going to happen after. In the first quarter of game one, he called a timeout, and the very next possession, we turned the ball over, and it led to a wide open three, and that is not an isolated incident. I don't think I've ever seen a nice set run out of a timeout. I just don't believe in him as an X and O kind of coach. Tail of the second quarters, our defense was stifling in the first quarter of game one. We were winning. Our defense was putrid in the second quarter. We gave up loads of open threes, no closeouts, missed assignments. We gave up 37 points in the second quarter. Let's hope our streak of weak third quarters doesn't continue. We're going to revisit this topic later in the pod. So in this game one, we actually had a great third quarter. Our defensive intensity came back, and Grant was hitting corner threes. He's been hitting threes all through these playoffs, which is really wild because he was not hitting them during the season. But then into the fourth quarter, back to me hating on Kemba Walker. I'm sorry, but that possession with Kemba, with us up by 2 with 50 seconds left, he just ISOs the whole clock away and gets blocked. That is a shit possession. I'm not in love with the full ISO, the whole clock for anyone in that scenario. But Kemba, he's been garbage, and that's just not a smart play call. I'm tired of people defending Kemba's performances. Last series, it was, the box and one. What is it this series? He's just flat out been bad. Consistently hurts us, period. That said, I still have the excuse that he's hurt. Then on the other end, Jimmy hits a three over guess who? Kemba. Then the last possession is a 35-foot three by Tatum. Is that really the best look we can get? And then we lose in overtime, of course, to the block heard round the world, that Bam Adebayo block on what was really an excellent drive to the hoop by Tatum. It was just an insane defensive play, an incredible defensive play by Miami. But honestly, at that point in the game, I didn't think that we deserved to win. I thought we deserved to lose. So I don't even really remember being that angry with the block. I was so frustrated with how we finished out that fourth quarter and how we played in the overtime. Our offense was just disgusting. ISO the clock, take threes. ISO down the clock, dribble the ball out, take threes. And it's been like that for a while. The last 4 or 5 minutes of games, our offense falls apart. I'm not sure at this point if Gordon can fix that, but something needs to change. I said before this series, I knew Miami was going to be tough. I think we lost this game in the second quarter when we played no D. This team shoots the ball too well to take a quarter off. They shot 44% in game one from three, and that's because we gave them a lot of wide open looks. So that was game one. I was really upset about how we played down the stretch, but at the same time, I predicted this series was going to go 7 before it started. So in my head, I was like, if we can just win game 2, we'll be fine. So let's move to game 2. Kemba was hitting a few shots early, which was nice, but to me, Wanamaker still looked just as good or better, which is crazy. Miami was still getting and making open threes. And here's some awful foreboding. Celtics have 8 turnovers with 7 minutes left in the second quarter. I'm predicting right now we lose this game because of turnovers. So this was like in the middle of the second quarter. I think we were up by 10 points, maybe 12 points. I think at one point in the second quarter, we were up by like 15 or 17. But I still was predicting that we were going to lose this game. So that's what the Celtics have done to me. We've been so bad about keeping leads that I just never feel comfortable. And when I looked and saw that we had 8 turnovers and we weren't even at halftime yet, I was like, so the Kemba block to transition layup puts the Celtics up by 15. I feel like it's been so long since we've seen how good the Celtics can be when Kemba plays like this. Hope he can keep it up. He doesn't. Why does Brown feel invisible this series? This doesn't age well. He's kind of low-key having a bad playoffs this year, just not shooting the ball well. Defensively, he's been great, but his three-point percentage is way, way down. He actually ended up having a pretty good game. Celtics up 17, and then we get 2 shitty ISO Tatum possessions and let Miami get within 13 to close the half. Our end of quarter, end of game possessions are horrifying. And again, this is us being up by 13 points going into half, and still at this point of the game, I felt like we were going to lose. And what happened after that? The worst third quarter of basketball I have seen in my entire adult life. Our offense looked putrid. Our lead disappeared. And it all started before halftime with those horrible isolation possessions at the end of the second quarter where the ball just did not move at all. I'm starting to feel like I don't trust this team to hold the lead or to close games out. I've lost my faith. It's kind of pathetic, honestly, that every time a team goes to zone, we just forget how to play basketball. I think we deserve to lose game 1. After this third quarter, I'm feeling like we deserve to lose this one as well. We don't come out prepared to play in third quarters. We cannot handle zones. Our offense completely falls apart in endgame situations. Feels like Brad Stevens is getting exposed. Then in the fourth quarter, the turnover inbounding the ball was just pathetic. I think we've invested $60 million in Hayward, who's hurt, and Kemba, who's been starring in Honey, I Shrunk My Skills. The Celtics no longer have faith in themselves, and I'm right there with them. I expected them to lose this game, even in the second quarter when we were winning. And, of course, we did lose. But really, it was that third quarter that was just unbelievable. I think they outscored us by 20 points in that third quarter, which just cannot happen. But, again, it started with the turnovers in the second and continued with turnovers in the third and the fourth. We have too many issues, 20 turnovers in this game to 9 for Miami. That's the game. Not understanding how to play basketball against a zone. That's the game. Only having one guy on the whole team who knows how to pass the ball. That's the game. Tatum and Kemba both had more turnovers than assists. You know who had more turnovers than assists on the Heat? Nobody. It's clear as day that Spoelstra is just leagues better than Brad Stevens. What was Brad Stevens' coaching wrinkle in this game? Bringing in Romeo for 1 minute in the first quarter so he could get hurt? What hurts so much is the league is just wide open this year. Anybody could win the championship. In a typical year, the Celtics team just wouldn't be quite good enough to get it done. But this year, they totally could have gotten it done. But yes, I think the Celtics are done. Maybe we'll win a few games. We're very talented, but I can no longer see us winning this series because of the following. Stevens has shown zero ability to figure out how to play against zone defense. We have shown a consistent inability to hold on to a lead. We've demonstrated an inability to run an effective offense when it matters most, instead devolving into ISO, dribbling, and three-pointers. So obviously I was a bit upset after that second game. That third quarter was horrific. The turnovers are just so bad, and it's just frustrating. It's frustrating having a point guard who doesn't know how to pass the ball. We went through that same crap with Kyrie Irving. I just don't think it's natural for a guy to play point guard and to average 4 or 5 assists. I think it's not good. It makes me miss Rondo, honestly. So let's move on to game 3, where I will finally come out of my depression a little bit, at least. Let me just start off by saying this whole story about Marcus Smart yelling at people in the locker room is the dumbest non-story I've ever heard. It's not important. It does not matter at all. The story that people should be talking about is how we turn the ball over. We can't beat the zone. We can't hold a lead. We let Adebayo dunk the ball 57 times a game, and we had one of the worst third quarters in the history of basketball. So shut up about Marcus Smart getting a little heated in the locker room. That's what happens when you lose games that you probably should win. So Adebayo getting a dunk in the first minute of this game didn't feel great. We can't seem to stop the Adebayo and Dragic pick and roll. It's just buckets every time Miami runs it. I was super, super happy to see Hayward in this game. He looked good right away. Our first turnover was 11 minutes into this game. That's a very good sign. Gave me a good vibe. Hero, on the other hand, killing us depresses me so much because every time I see Tyler Hero, I just think of how perfect a Celtic he would have been and how if that coin flip for that draft pick would have gone the other way, he would be in Celtics green. There's no question that Danny Ainge had his eye on Tyler Hero, and then when he came off the board, literally the pick before ours, we ended up taking Romeo Langford, who, look, I don't want to bash Romeo. He's still young. He could end up being a really good player, but it's just really hard to look at what he's given us this series and then to watch what Tyler Hero is doing for the Heat. It's tough. What a way to finish the half. Tatum dunk, Brown steal, plus layup. Great first half. Kemba shooting the ball well. Brown's defense has been phenomenal. Tatum has 7 assists. But here comes the dreaded third quarter. Tice got in foul trouble in the third, and Grant came in and played great. Hit a corner 3 straight away. Made a basket right underneath the hoop. It was a good third quarter. It wasn't horrific. Anything that's not horrific at this point for the Celtics, anything that doesn't just completely crumble and destroy our chances to win, is an incredible third quarter. Jaylen Brown is balling in this game, total beast mode. But then we get to the end of the game. The last 5 minutes, again, we looked awful. Careless turnovers, pointless three-pointers. The Celtics played an incredible game for 3.5 quarters here. The Heat played like crap for most of the game, and yet we still almost found a way to lose this game. I'm glad we won, of course, but nothing that I've seen in this game changes my opinion that we lose this series in 7 games, best case scenario. So you can see I'm still not completely out of my Celtics funk. I think we're up by 20 points at one point in that fourth quarter, and we let it get all the way down to 6, I believe, before Miami just bricked so many shots that we were able to win by double digits. But it was anything but a comfortable victory. It was a game that we had no business being close. It had no business being close at all. We basically led the entire game. We played fantastic. Almost all of our guys contributed meaningful minutes, and Miami just played bad across the board. Adebayo was the only guy who had a good game, and yet they still found a way to get within 6 in the final minutes. Kemba had a nice shooting game again, 2 in a row, which is great. Really, really great to see him finally shooting the ball the way he's been shooting it his entire life. But he continues to make horrible turnovers. He had 2 assists in this game, 2 assists and 4 turnovers. That's our point guard. That's the guy who's supposed to be handling the ball, getting our offense going. 2 assists, 4 turnovers. That means in the last 2 games, he's had 6 assists and 9 turnovers. That's incredibly bad. Hayward played a solid 30 minutes in this game, helped us a lot. Didn't look like much on the box score, but if you watch the game, there's no question that him being on the court helped us tremendously. Like I said before, mediocre Hayward is light years better than Semi Ojeleye, who did not enter this game, obviously because Hayward is back, which is great. But really, we won this game because of Jaylen Brown. I think that's the best game that he's had in his entire career. He was the best player on both sides of the floor. He scored 26 points and only shot 2 3-pointers. Him and Gordon both had 3 steals and a block, but the numbers there don't tell the whole story. A lot of Hayward steals, Miami just threw him the ball. Whereas with Jaylen's steals and blocks, almost all of them were fantastic 1-versus-1 defensive plays that then led to fast break points and swung the momentum of this game. I think we tied some record for most points in the paint in the playoffs. And really that all started with Brown's mentality that he was not going to settle for jumpers, that he was going to make them pay in the paint, that he was going to take it to the rim. He was so aggressive. His defense was just a thing of beauty. But unfortunately, even after this game is finished and the Celtics have won, I have the same sort of feeling that I had last series when we went up 2-0 on Toronto. I wasn't comfortable. I thought Toronto was too good to roll over, but I figured we'd still win in 7. I knew that Toronto wasn't going to give up. We weren't going to sweep them, but I just could not see them beating us 4 out of 5 games. And I have that same feeling in this series. Miami has been so good in these playoffs. In fact, this is probably the first bad game that they've played in the entire playoffs. And I just can't see us being able to beat them 4 out of 5 games. So while it's great to win this game, it's a long series, and putting ourselves in a 2-0 hole was just really bad. Really, really bad. Miami shot 27% from three-point land in this game. Don't expect that to keep happening. They're one of the best three-point shooting teams in the league. So while this was much, much, much better from the Celtics, they really put themselves in a poor position with that 0-2 hole. And while they cleaned up the turnovers in this game, and I do expect the ball to be moving better now that Gordon Hayward is back, we still have that worrying tendency in the last 5 minutes of the game to just completely forget how to play basketball and how to play Celtics basketball and just resort to ISO, dribble, chuck a 3, which we did. We did at the end of this game, and it was a mess. We had turnovers and awful 3-pointers to end this game, and we almost gave it up again. So the next game is a must-win as well. So yeah, if we can win that and then it's 2-2, who knows? I hope the Celtics prove me wrong. I really do. I want us to win. I know maybe when you listen to me do these podcasts, it sounds like I'm actually rooting against my own team. That's not the case. Every game I watch, I want the Celtics to win. I'm desperate for them to win. But I also have a practical side of me that I just look at how things are happening and what I expect to happen. And when we went down 0-2, I figured that was it. That was the series, even if we battle back. felt the same way against Toronto. Even if they battled back, it would be too hard for them to beat us 4 out of 5 times. We obviously saw how that played out, and I just imagine something similar happening in this series. Even if we can battle back and make it 2-2 after next game, then what? We have to win 3 games in a row against the Heat to make it 3-2. That's really, really difficult. So let's say the Heat win that game, then it's 3-2. Then we have to win 2 games in a row. So it's just going to be basically difficult the whole rest of the way because of the way we started this series. And while it's certainly not impossible, I do think that Miami is definitely favored in this series now at this point. But fingers crossed, go Celtics. Hope you liked the video. I'll try to have another one after the next couple of games. And until then, enjoy playoff basketball.